Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Boxing Podcast, episode 351. 2 weeks in a row, Mike. And you're back again for the second week in a row in a long time, right?
Guess who's back? Back again. I better not start singing. Everyone will turn off.
What if we make that our theme song? Instead of the intro that we've had the entire, 7-8 years we've had the podcast, what if we just change it to that song? Is it worth it?
Be worth it for Eminem. The royalties.
We'd have to pay. Now you never know. Maybe we can shoot an email to his agent and he's like, oh yeah, take it. You never know. Crazier things have happened. Remember when Terrence Crawford, I think he got him off on like an Instagram comment or something, and Eminem saw it.
And I was at the show where he performed, Crawford and Madrimov.
And out here in LA. That's right. That's right. I'm just saying. There's a boxing tie-in right there. But let's just jump straight back into it. Probably the biggest news, at least of this early week, early on the week, Monday, today. Zuffa Boxing officially announces a broadcast television partnership with Paramount CBS. Are we really surprised when they just announced, within the last month or two, a UFC deal with Paramount CBS? I mean, I think me and you were texting about it in terms of I'm pretty sure Paramount's going to get like a deal there. And I think there was like some whispers that and some reports that Paramount did have the deal, but it just wasn't show yet. Are we surprised? What do you think?
Listen to last week's show. No. We said it last week, didn't we?
We talked about it last week.
Yeah, that we thought CBS, Paramount, or maybe even Netflix were probably the two landing spots just because of their current deals that they already have, like TKO as a company, obviously has wrestling on Netflix, and then the new deal with the UFC. So I think it made sense. And when you're all powerful, like Dana White is, I think those companies want a good relationship. So giving them, I'm sure it's a small amount of money towards Zuffa and boxing due to the fact that it's a new product, keeps Dana White happy. Look at Power Slap. That managed to get like a broadcasting deal for a good amount of money on like Rumble, and then it moved to somebody else, and that's just all down to Dana White.
That's true. No, that's true. And I mean, we know that TKO, Dana White, and the whole power team right there at TKO, Nick Khan, who's a big boxing guy, by the way. I don't know if people know that. We've talked about it here before, and I've talked about it within interviews with past guests here on the podcast. But the current president of the WWE, Nick Khan, he's a big boxing guy. If you watch his interviews that he's given on podcasts or like the Bill Simmons podcast and other stuff, or he's been on Colin Cowherd, he talks about watching HBO boxing and the fighters. So you could tell he's like a boxing mind. But the fact that he's involved here, I mean, he was involved in this deal, and he was like a sports agent before with what's the big Hollywood agency? Is it CAA or something like that?
Something like that.
Something like that. There's obviously a couple, but I think it's CAA. They're in Los Angeles or Beverly Hills, somewhere around there. But Nick Khan, Dana White, Ari Emanuel at TKO over there, those are power players, man. So it's likely that when they were negotiating the UFC media rights with Paramount CBS, I'm sure they threw that in there like, hey, if you want us to sign a deal with you, give us some dates or give us a deal too for our newly created boxing league, TKO Boxing or Zuffa Boxing, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's business 101. You have something. It's kind of like having a Canelo Alvarez or a superstar, right? You know, like you're the A side. So when he was fighting for Oscar De La Hoya all those times, they could essentially get any opponent they want from either promoter because it was such a significant payday for that fighter. And there's a chance that that fighter could beat a superstar like Canelo. I mean, you have the leverage in business. Doesn't that make sense that TKO utilized the UFC media rights deal to include broadcast partnership for Zuffa Boxing? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. You know, if it's all under the same banner, if it's all under TKO, you know, like we said, is you watch Dana White after a big UFC event when he's in front of the press, he has like a cup normally, and it's a power slap cup. So he's promoting that on there. We've seen a small crossover with UFC and WWE so far, and vice versa, with people showing up on the shows or just being in the crowd or advertisements. So, you know, why wouldn't you when it's all under the one banner, you know? So it's going to help, obviously, the Zuffa Boxing, you know, exposure massively. So...
And I think it said that, 12 to 16 events a year? I think that's what it said. They're going to announce more details, or it's reportedly beginning. What they said in the press release that it's beginning in this January of 2026, and it's going to be on Paramount Plus, and I'm sure they're going to utilize maybe some CBS airtime as well. I think as long as UFC is making CBS money or Paramount money, or it's bringing them additional subscribers or viewers, I think TKO and Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, and that whole crew over there is gonna be able to at least sacrifice the boxing business, because I mean, they're going to get people tuning in, especially hardcore boxing fans, because they're curious, you know, because Dana White has said for a while that he doesn't want to get like sign big name boxers or anything like that. He wants to build like his guys up, and, you know, kind of wants to build his own stable. So unless you have like a big anchor fighter, like a Terrence Crawford, Canelo, I know they just did that fight, but unless you have that fighter to bring viewers in, people are going to tune in maybe for the first or second one just because they're interested. Like, oh, it's a Dana White led. It's interesting, but you're going to have to try to sustain that audience. And we know with boxing, sustaining that audience is pretty difficult unless you're a big superstar like a Canelo or, you know, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and those guys who just bring eyeballs, right?
100%, because if you go, like, how many shows have we been to? And because we're boxing geeks, we're there from first fight to last fight. Well, how many times is it that the arena, the stadium is empty till the co-main or even the main?
Yeah.
People only show up for that. And like you said, if he's not going to have like a loss leader, you know, someone that they're just throwing money at that know they're not going to recoup, but he's a star that's putting the butts in the seats, then how many people apart from us, you know, boxing hardcores are going to actually watch it?
Exactly. I mean, I remember that you saying that makes me think of when Eddie Hearn, I think, started to enter the U.S. market with DAZN and all that. You know, when DAZN kind of started up and Eddie Hearn started coming over here. I remember Eddie Hearn saying that, you know, he admired Dana White UFC and the UFC model because he essentially was saying that when fans were attending a UFC fight, it was like an event, like it was like a night out for them. Like they were dressing up really nice, and it was very like it was like they were proud to go. They were dressing up very nice and stuff like that, and attending the event, and they were there from like essentially the beginning to the end. And I remember Eddie Hearn with Matchroom Boxing was essentially indicating that that's what he wanted to do with boxing for his events with Matchroom. He's like, you know, I want it to be treated like every fight that you go to is like a huge event. Like, oh, you dress up, you're having a great night out and all that. And I mean, I'm assuming that's what they want to do with Zuffa Boxing. it'll probably take some time, but I mean, if you had to put an estimate of a number, how long do you think, if it happens, do you think it takes for Zuffa Boxing to kind of find a sustainable audience or a viewer?
Oof.
It's boxing, so it's different.
I'm going to guess that they're going to do the first show in January, and then they'll do like around one a month, right? 12 to 16 shows, so maybe like one a month.
I remember Dana White has said in multiple interviews, and he said it in a couple today or this week, that he was a big fan of Tuesday night fights that happened years ago. I don't know. I forgot what channel he said on. But it was Tuesday night fights. So every week there was fights on Tuesdays. And he said, yeah, there was guys on there that I was big fans of, and they were like, you know, they had like a nice stable of fighters fighting on Tuesdays. And then some of those guys ended up like essentially graduating to bigger fights like on Saturdays and pay-per-view and all that. And it was cool because he's like, you get to follow them. I mean, he's kind of had that I guess that process for UFC, right? Where he had the Ultimate Fighter, and some of them do well enough to make it into UFC, and the hardcore fans who are watching the Ultimate Fighter kind of stay with the journey. So I think he has said that he wants to do something of a Tuesday night fights, but I mean, that's going to be pretty difficult, right? Weekly fights in boxing. I mean, it's already hard with just UFC.
I think that's the product that he's looking for. I think it's going to be monthly, but it's going to be like a Tuesday night fight. So remember the ESPN Friday night fights where there weren't really names, but they were well matched. I think that's the sort of thing, the products that he's looking for, because from that Brian Campbell interview that you were talking about earlier, I'll just read this real quick. According to White, Zuffa Boxing will serve as a proving ground, matching rising prospects against one another in 50-50 fights to create the stars of tomorrow that will one day appear on Turkey Ali Sheikh's The Ring and Riyadh season events. So it's looking like it's going to be like the Contender Series or, you know, the Ultimate Fighter type stars. So it's going to be up-and-coming prospects. So maybe he's not going to throw money at, you know, like a Terence Crawford or a Canelo or, you know, someone super popular that's going to bring eyeballs. But to me, it's then with the amount of sports that we have in America and then the UFC and normal boxing, who's going to turn down one of those events to watch? And it kind of feels harsh to say a load of no names, but a load of prospects, you know, in a show where the main event is also a prospect.
Yeah. I mean, just like I was talking about before, like he did say that he doesn't want to like bring big name fighters. He wants to kind of build his own stable. But I think he might be forced to have, obviously there's not big superstars in the sport right now. I mean, like obviously I guess it just determines on your understanding of the word superstar. Like maybe Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, those guys are a little bit more popular than the others. So if you want to give those names for boxing, I guess that's understandable, just because the bar has kind of been set lower, you know, over the last several years. But he might be forced to bring on a couple of these guys in order to sustain eyeballs. I mean, it's going to come down to business, right? Like the first couple fights or events, if it doesn't prove to Paramount or even to Dana White and TKO that they're attracting viewers and sustaining some decent number of viewers, then he's going to be forced to like, okay, I'm going to have to bring these guys in. Like I'm going to have to bring some anchor fighters in that are established, that bring some eyeballs in. And don't you think that if that does happen, which I think is kind of likely, then he's kind of just going to be back. He's going to be in the same situation that a lot of these promoters, these boxing promoters are in, where they have to pay these fighters because these fighters already know like, oh, okay, well, you know, you need me to make business, to make your business grow. So I kind of have, you know, especially if they're a popular fighter, they bring eyeballs to the TV product. they kind of have some authority over the purse, right? Like, hey, well, this is what I want. And that promoter is kind of like, well, I need to perform for my broadcast partner because I have a deal with them. Dana White might be in the same situation that all these other promoters, Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom, he might be in the same situation they're all in right now, right? Or am I wrong?
No, 100%. It's like we said before, we press record, is he might cut some of those savings by, hosting them himself at the UFC Apex. So that might save some money. He already has his production crew from the UFC. He can host them at the Apex. So all you're really looking at is, paying the fighters themselves, really. Obviously, there's going to be some production costs, but not like you're traveling around the US to different casinos, to different arenas, having to do it. So he's going to save a lot of money doing that, which is going to be interesting to see if he does that, or is he going to try and travel around and do a site fee? And then also, is the TKO going to be, taking over cities? Are we going to start seeing, the roll into Vegas, and then you've got Zuffa Boxing on a Thursday, you've got UFC on a Friday, WrestleMania on a Saturday, Power Slap on a Sunday. All these things are going to be super interesting to see, once it gets going.
I mean, they've already been doing that with just WWE and the UFC, right? They've done it probably half a dozen times already, maybe 6-7 times, where the weekend they combine a weekend of WWE and UFC essentially in the same city or the same general area, like a Friday something or a Saturday and a Sunday, just something like that. I mean, it's kind of a given, right? That they're going to eventually try to do that with all three sports that they have, or all three products that they have under their banner, right? The only one that they would, don't they also
do bull riding? That's what.
Yeah,
well.
PBR. Yeah, don't they also own PBR? So, I mean, like, there's a chance that all four of those things, PBR, boxing, Zuffa Boxing, WWE, and UFC, are all squeezed into one weekend. I mean, they might try that for sure. Boxing, MMA, UFC, and WWE, those are definitely they're gonna try to squeeze those in for the weekend. Because I mean, think about it. You go to like a city like Indianapolis or some other cities, Miami or whatever, like New York and LA, you'd still get a lot of traffic there just because of the population there. But imagine going to like a city in the Midwest or something like that. Like a Friday you have, bull riding or PBR. People go Friday. Saturday you have UFC, and then Sunday you have a WWE pay-per-view. There are some people who will go to all three. They're like, oh, hell yeah, I know what I'm doing all weekend. And it's like, I mean, that's what they want, right? Like, I think whether people like it or not, like they're trying to monopolize the game in that matter, right? But I mean, they have the money to do it. I mean, what can you do, right?
Yeah, because if you think about it, they've already bought and monopolized MMA. Bellator's gone. PFL's non-existent. The GFL was a non-start. They bought Pride and Strikeforce. WWE, no one relatively close to them. AEW, still a far distance.
Well, I think especially since they combined with TKO, Ari Emanuel, and stuff like that, WWE became even bigger than it was, and it was already a huge billion-dollar product. Yeah. So it became bigger than it was when it merged. So, the AEW has the HBO partnership and Warner Brothers, but it's kind of like they're going up against a monster that's under UFC, WWE, and that's in addition and that's not even mentioning all the other like companies and investments that and I'm not even TKO, but what is it called? What's the company called? Endeavor. That's not even mentioning that. That's like the parent companies that they own a lot of other stuff, other products and services and companies and media rights and license copyrights and all that stuff. So yeah, that's just the nature of the whole situation. And then we touched on the Brian Campbell on CBS Sports interview that Dana White did this week following the press release of the announcement of UFC and Paramount, or Zuffa Boxing and Paramount, excuse me. He was asked about the Ali Act. I know that's gotten a lot of traction in the last couple months. Dana White said again, I think he said it before, that at least according to how they're looking at it, is that no language in the act is actually going to be removed or changed. The act is going to stay the same, that they're just adding language to it, but the act is still going to be intact. I mean, do we believe that? What do you think?
I suppose time will tell. Obviously, he's going to try to change it a bit because I know that he doesn't want to, from what I've seen in several interviews, I think he's trying to make it so that the boxers or fighters can't see exactly how much the event made, because I believe that in the act now, after the event's finished, a boxer is entitled to a copy of all the monies, their share, how much the promoter got paid, and so on and so forth. So I think that was something that he was trying to get rid of in some sort of way. So it's going to be interesting to see. But from my investigations into the Ali Act, it's never really done anything. You've got some civil lawsuits, but actual legal lawsuits, it's never protected anybody. So I don't know why they keep saying about, what he's doing is atrocious, he's going to ruin boxing. And, a friend of mine, Daniel Franco, who was a professional boxer, he got injured in a fight, fighting for Rock Nation, ended up in hospital, nearly lost his life. His family ended up with about $500,000 to $600,000 worth of medical bills. They took Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z, to court to see it because he was refusing to pay, refusing to answer any emails, any phone calls. Who's got the bigger pockets? Jay-Z. So who ran out of money first? Daniel Franco and his father. So that's just one example of where the Ali Act did absolutely nothing. His father was retired at the time after being successful in a business before, had to come out with retirement to carry on working to help pay the bills. Where was the Ali Act then? And the Ali Act is also only in the US.
Right.
So all Eddie Hearn and everyone in the UK doesn't have to answer to it. All the fights that go on in Turkey and, the Turkey Al-Sheikh does in Saudi Arabia, has no power there. And then, and if you think about it, any other fighter that wants to take Matchroom, Top Rank, PBC to court, who has the deeper pockets? Matchroom, so they're always going to lose. They're just going to wait out, keep sending letters, and before you know it, the boxers run out of money and it can't go anywhere. So it's flawed.
Yeah. I mean that's the thing, right? It's just that I think it was John McCain, Senator John McCain, who passed away, maybe 7-8 years ago. I think he was the one I think it was in the 90s, right, when the act was passed, because he was like a boxer in his youth, and I think he was like a big proponent of the act and sponsored it and all that. And obviously it was named after Muhammad Ali, and he was involved in supporting the act and all that. But like you said, like it hasn't really ever been effectively used.
Like a handful of civil lawsuits, and that's it. From my investigation over the internet, using different things, but there's never been one huge case where they've voted on the side of the boxer.
Right, and I mean, you also got to look at it from a financial standpoint, right? Like a majority of fighters, even if they are professional fighters, aren't making hundreds of thousands of dollars, let alone millions of dollars, right? So in order to initiate litigation, especially in the United States, it takes money. It takes money, and like you're essentially going to go against a promoter, especially if it's one of the big promoters who are a multi-million-dollar promoter, right? So it's like, oh well, I'm 6-2 or 8-3, but my highest payday has been $10,000, so far, and I know they're doing me dirty in violation of the Ali Act, but do I have the resources and the money to take this to court and fight. I mean, like you mentioned, Daniel Franco is a perfect example. Like he was a promising fighter. He was signed by Rock Nation, which is obviously, Jay-Z was the owner. And then unfortunately he had that horrible accident or that injury that, caused him. I mean, luckily he's okay, but he had to go through a lot of crap to, in terms of physical therapy and procedures and all that. But luckily he made it and he's doing good. But like you said, and if people remember, he was online and posting videos and, trying to get Rock Nation's attention and he got some media out of it. There were some news agencies that picked it up and he had some interviews and stuff like that, but it never really caught significant wind for him to
Chris
change.
Mannix came to the gym and interviewed him.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like he got media attention, but it obviously wasn't effective enough. And I don't think it's his fault and his family's fault. That's just the nature of what happened, right? And like you said, you know his family, you know him and his family, like you know them personally. So, his father was already retired and had to come out of retirement to go back to work to make money to pay the bills and probably the money that they spend on litigation and what have you. I mean, it's tough, man. It is tough. Like in general, litigation in the United States in general, especially if it's something significant like that, it's pricey. And I mean, people essentially look at their lives as just like that's the nature of living, right? It's just like, okay, do I have the money to pay for this? Is this worth my energy and my time? And especially if you have like a family or you have other obligations in your life. I mean, those are real questions. Right? So, I mean, I don't know. I obviously there's critics and there's supporters of TKO and Dana White changing or adding to the Ali Act, as he said. But I don't think they've released, and I could be wrong, maybe you can let me know, but I don't think they've released any type of language of the act, right? Like in Congress or anything like that?
No, not that I know of. I know that they're still looking at, I think, exactly at what they want and the wording of what they want. So I don't think there's ever been a finalized document.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything yet. See, that's going to be the finished, or not finished product, but essentially the product that we're going to buy, essentially, quote unquote, right? So once that bill comes out, then people can start reading it. We can read it, kind of analyze it, critique it, and all that. But up until then, it's just like, okay, well, we just kind of have to wait. But what Dana White said, as of today, as of this week, he said that none of the language in the original act is being changed or removed, that it's staying, that they're just going to add language to it. So, I mean, according to his words, it's still going to be there. So I don't know. I mean, I think that boxing's obviously in terms of business, it's in probably the lowest points it's ever been. And going back to Nick Khan, like I told you, he's a boxing guy, and I think we've talked about this in past episodes, but I remember him giving an interview. I think it was on Colin Cowherd's show or podcast. Nick Khan, and I think I've asked you this question before, but tell me if you agree with it. I'll rephrase it, or I'll re-ask it again. Nick Khan had told Colin Cowherd he was like boxing going behind a paywall for HBO and Showtime. He essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said that wasn't good for the long-term health of the sport business-wise. He said, because when you were younger, I know you grew up in the UK, but over here, and you tell me if there's a comparable in terms of premium channels in the UK, but over here in the United States, HBO and Showtime were premium channels. and they were looked at as like, hey, if you have those channels, like your family's kind of rich, you know? And he said that, and I remember growing up and like, that's true. That's true. Like, I remember seeing you got HBO? Man, like, I don't have HBO. Like, we ended up getting like later in life, and, but that's when like my siblings started working and stuff like that. So like, oh, I'm going to pay for it. Like, but he said, he's like, went behind a paywall. He's like, and everybody's like, oh, only rich families or rich people have those channels, even though you weren't paying like $10,000 a year or anything like that. But it's just like people, like I said, like they look out for themselves. Essentially, it's like, hey, do I have money to pay for this? Do I have an extra $30 a month to pay for this? And he said, he's like, boxing going behind that premium paywall affected the overall health of the sport, because even though some fighters broke beyond that wall to still get famous enough and become stars, he's like, not enough of them were. He's like, and that's where we're at today, where, the sport continued on to where it was, and it's still kind of behind paywalls in a sense, like with DAZN, for example, and all that. I mean, what do you agree with that? I mean, what's a comparable premium channel in the UK when you were growing up that people were like, oh, you have that channel?
I suppose having like Sky Sports TV is like, that's what a lot of the British fights would be on. But then also you could pay extra, and with your Sky box, you could get HBO and Showtime, and they were like an additional add-on. Same sort of thing with an extra $10, $20 a month or something like that. So pretty similar. It's funny because sometimes you see it on Twitter, boxing's dead. But then when you listen to a lot of the promoters, like your Eddie Hearns and your Dana Whites, and Eddie Hearns, like, no. But it's kind of like, how do you judge it? Because if you look at recent pay-per-view numbers, they're never as high as like during Floyd's era. But also at the same time, piracy is easier.
Right.
So it's kind of like hard to say, like, is boxing as popular as it was back then? Or, is it just because of the piracy? And we have a multitude of channels now. Back in the day, we only had 5 in the UK. So like, if a fight was on channel BBC or ITV, you're going to get millions of viewers because there's only 5 things to watch.
Right.
So it's kind of like hard to really, put a finger on it, because there's so many variables in it. But the amount of DAZN coming in, Dana White coming in, Turki Al-Sheikh coming in, Eddie Hearn investing, Frank Warren, it mustn't be dead, or else why would they be investing in it?
Right. I mean, you would think, right, if you're kind of looking at it from that angle.
Netflix, CBS, Paramount, they're not going to go, oh, we'll just invest in that just for the sake of it. They're here to make money.
Right. And I mean, and I think we touched on this in last week's show. Paramount CBS is the same company as Showtime. Showtime is under the Paramount umbrella. And Showtime just got out of the boxing business. What was it? 2 years ago, 2023?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Right? 2 years ago, or give or take. And now they like jump right back in. So like, that's kind of them kind of indicating like, hey, like, we're still open to being in the business, and we think these guys can make us money, so we're going with them. And it's like, I mean, HBO got out in 2018 and they haven't shown anything since.
No, true.
And I wonder, like, and who knows, but that's what I would really want to ask. And I don't know if they would reveal this, but that's what I would really want to ask, like a Dana White or a Nick Khan or Ari Emanuel, any of those guys, the power players at TKO Endeavor. It's like, hey, obviously I'm sure you talk to a lot of different outlets, streaming partners and television partners in terms of negotiations, but did you talk to HBO? Like, that's the one I'd be interested in. Because imagine if people found out, like, if that released on social media or something, like a report or saying like, hey, HBO, had a meeting with TKO in terms of for their boxing league, Zuffa Boxing and UFC. like, imagine what that's telling promoters like Matchroom, Golden Boy, Top Rank. Like, oh, HBO is still interested. You know, there's still something there. And then you hit the nostalgia factor with people who were like, hey, bring HBO, like HBO Boxing. I mean, that's what I would want to know. Like, as an outside looking in, a person outside looking in, was HBO involved? Like, did Dana White and the TKO brass have a meeting with HBO? Warner Brothers, you know, they have HBO Max. That's what it's called, right? That's their streaming option. Mm-hmm. But now that I think about it, I'm probably answering my own question, because I forget that we talked about AEW, which is the other professional wrestling promotion. They have a deal with HBO, Warner Brothers, and WWE with TKO. I mean, I don't think that would work, right? Yeah, that kind of answers my own question. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to see, right? Starting in January, and I'm sure by January we're going to see get a better understanding of the events for Zuffa Boxing, and then also the Ali Act. See what they're going to do, because as of right now, we don't know. We're just gonna have to wait.
Zuffa Boxing is going to be more 360 promotions / Wasserman promotions than Top Rank, Matchroom, and PBC. If I'm going to compare what their promotion,
Tom Loeffler,
it's going to be more that style with up and coming fighters, maybe a main event who you've kind of heard of, but it's not going to be your Star Spangled Banner with name after name, championship after championship, like a PBC, Matchroom, Top Rank card.
And I do think that Tom Loeffler will, because I think he was on our podcast a couple months ago. I had him on, and I asked him about any potential relationship with TKO Boxing, Zuffa, Dana White, and he kind of like smirked and kind of laughed about it. But then he's like, "Oh, you know, I hope they do great and stuff like that." But he kind of indicated that he might have a role there. And I mean, remember we would always talk about when there was 360 cards here in Los Angeles, in the city of Montebello, which is a city like essentially within Los Angeles County. Dana White would be at those shows. And it wasn't like it was like a 30,000 seat arena. It was like an American Legion Hall or something like that. It was maybe 600 people?
Yeah.
You know, and Dana White was there with Tom Loeffler and all that. So they've always talked well about each other. Dana White's always been a big fan of Loeffler, and Loeffler's always been a big fan of Dana White. And then 360 Promotions, their streaming television partner was UFC Fight Pass. I think it might still be. I'm not entirely sure if it's still ongoing, but it has been. What do you think is the likelihood, percentage-wise, that Tom Loeffler gets announced in the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months as being a part of Zuffa Boxing?
Yeah, I could see that. Dana White's a very busy man, so whether he brings him in as, you know, like a CEO or whatever it is, you know, some sort of position to help run it. Yeah, I could see that. You know, for people who don't know, you know, he was the manager of Klitschko, Triple G.
Yeah,
he's been around for a long time, but he's not really a big media guy.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's a more behind the scenes guy, but he's a smart mind. You know, he knows his stuff. So, like you said, Klitschko brothers, Triple G. So he's been around. He's definitely been around. And then another topic that we didn't touch on last week, but I wanted to touch on today. Obviously, unfortunately, we had the passing within the last couple of weeks of Ricky the Hitman Hatton. I believe his funeral is either this week or it's in the near future. When you heard about Ricky Hatton, I know we were like texting about it that day, but when you heard about the news that Ricky Hatton had passed away, what was your reaction?
We're just shocked. because obviously he had an upcoming fight in like Saudi Arabia. I know that he'd been posting stuff on social media about how happy he was to, be training for that. It gave him like a real moment to get back into the gym, to keep himself fit, stay away from, the booze and, the bad food and stuff like that. His son had a up and down, career in the ring, but, he still had more wins than losses.
And he looks exactly like him.
Yeah, there's stuff like that. He had some fighters, his brother as well. Matthew Hatton was doing well. He had some fighters. So he looked like he'd kind of like turned that corner of, when he retired and then was kind of down, because imagine going from being, the darling of Manchester, walking out in the front of all these fans who were singing your name, to just being a normal guy, kind of like on the street. It must be, hard for you to kind of quantify, I guess, to be able to walk around like that, even though he was still a celebrity, but it's still not the same, because, when you're a boxer, most people are like, hey, Ricky, how's it going? When's your next fight? They can't say that anymore because he's retired. That's what a lot of boxers say. So it looked like he'd kind of got over that, was training again. So yeah, it was a massive shock, because I don't think we've ever seen another fighter like that. They say that 35,000 Brits came over for when he fought Floyd Mayweather, and actually, and you can Google this, drank the MGM dry of alcohol. They had to ship it in from other casinos. The only time that's ever happened.
That's insane.
So that just goes to show you the amount of, 35,000 Brits flew over. I think only 7 went to the fight. 7,000 went to the fight because that was all the tickets. It wasn't a 35,000 arena stadium.
Yeah.
That just goes to show the amount of fans that you had, and we've never seen anything like that before. Yeah. So it was.
They probably just wanted to be in the city, even if they were just at a viewing party on the strip or something, at a bar, just like being in the city next to the fight.
Because he was the kind of name when I really started watching boxing, because I didn't have Sky Sports as a kid. My family didn't have it. So when I got older, like you said, when I was making my own money, that was when I purchased it, when I moved out. So I grew up watching like Ricky Hatton, your Cal Froch, like Amir Khan, Rendell Munro, who was a bin man by day and then was a boxer by night, like people like that. So, he was really the start of my, boxing addiction, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what fight, obviously his biggest ones, I guess, in the scope of his career was probably like Mayweather, Pacquiao, globally. But if you had to say, besides those 2 fights, what was his biggest fight? Like the biggest event that you remember getting the most eyeballs?
Costa Zoo was the fight that took him to that level. When he fought Costa Zoo, who was obviously kind of coming on the other side of his career, I guess. And, he retired on the 11th round. That was kind of the fight where it was like, okay, like we know that Ricky actually is, world class. And then he fought, if you remember, Luis Collazo.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember him from New York? He went and fought him, Juan Orango, Jose Luis Castillo. Then he fought Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, everyone remembers that. 2 more fights, Juan Locanzo. And then he fought Paulie Malignaggi. He knocked him out in the 11th round. And then obviously the next big fight was when he fought Manny Pacquiao. So but Costa Zoo, I think, was the one where the Brits were like, okay, like he's actually beating him. We know for a fact this guy is world level. And that's when his career just took off.
The Michael Buffer did an interview, I think, with it might have been Sky. Yeah, I think it was Sky. Just after the news of Ricky Hatton's passing made the airwaves. And Michael Buffer talks about how that fight in between Mayweather and Pacquiao, Juan Lozano, as he's announcing him as like the victor, Ricky Hatton puts his arm around him, and then Michael Buffer says, like, he finishes saying his announcement, like in his face. He's like, the hitman, Hatton. He's like saying it in his face, and Ricky Hatton has his arm around him. And I saw the footage because in the Sky interview, as they're interviewing Buffer, they're putting the B-roll on there, and then Buffer got emotional about it and stuff. But it's just like you said, like Ricky Hatton was like, he was one of those guys. Like I think a lot of people looked at him, a lot of his fan base looked at him as like just an everyday guy who could be their neighbor. which also like people kind of root for the underdog, right? Even though Ricky Hatton was a very, very successful professional boxer, and he was arguably during this time, he was like one of the best boxers in the world. He was still looked at as an underdog, because he was like an everyday man.
Yeah, 100%. He was the last of that breed, I guess, where he was attainable. Like you could go out to a local bar and Ricky would be there and everyone loved him. It was kind of good and bad for his career because he was like that. That was why you get 35,000 fans flying over to Vegas. But at the same time, when he's out in those bars, he's eating and he's drinking, and that was why his weight would go up and down. And obviously, towards the end of his career, he may have lost to Floyd and Manny Pacquiao anyway because they're two generational greats. But that obviously doesn't help. When you're trying to make weight and you're having to lose a substantial amount of weight. But I can't think of anybody who comes even close to that, like right now, or maybe ever again, because most boxers, when they get to that level, they're kind of wrapped in cotton wool and hidden away. You don't see a Canelo just walking around a bar or a restaurant, someone like that, because of how the celebrity status that they have. It's not, you don't see that.
How would you rank Ricky Hatton in terms of like the biggest British boxing star in the history of the sport? Because obviously you got like Lennox Lewis, but like you said, like he had 35,000 people come to Las Vegas. They drank the MGM dry, and like he had a fan base. Like he had the fan base in the corner of these fights, bringing instruments with them, like singing him to the ring, singing at all 12 rounds. Like they were singing songs with his name in them. Like who, pound for pound, and I'm not talking about like, obviously there's been big British fighters, but I'm talking about global, like somebody who reached or got close to that status. Is it Ricky Hatton? Because I wouldn't even say like Anthony Joshua. I mean, Anthony Joshua was a big star. So was Tyson Fury and stuff like that. But I mean, what do you think?
No, I think you might be right, because I know a lot of people are going to be saying stuff like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, maybe even Carl Froch because he sold out Wembley Stadium. But are 35,000 people going to fly over and pay the hard-earned money to come to Las Vegas, and 90% of them don't even get to watch the fight live? I very much doubt that. I've been in Vegas for 2 or 3 Tyson Fury fights, and it wasn't like that. Carl Froch obviously sells in the UK, but I don't know if he's going to be able. Are people going to put the hard-earned money on the table for him to fight over here? Or when he fought like Mikkel Kessler and Andre Ward, I think you might be right. In terms of that, like literally showing how much you want to follow the person around the world, that's another level. The only person I can think who's remotely close is Conor McGregor, and he's not a boxer.
Yeah, I mean, combat sports, if you want to expand beyond boxing, obviously Conor McGregor. But
I've been in Vegas when he fought Nate Diaz, the second fight, and the weigh-in. I was at the weigh-in and the fight for when he fought Floyd Mayweather. And the weigh-in was absolutely off the hinges. It was packed, absolutely packed, just for the weigh-in.
Yeah, I was at the kickoff press conference at the Staples Center for Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. I was right there, front row, media section. We were in the back with them, and the whole arena was packed, and it was just a press conference to announce the fight.
Yeah,
and the whole arena was packed, 16 to 20,000 seats essentially, and it was just a press conference. But I mean, obviously, Conor McGregor is I'm just focusing more on boxers, but you also got to think about it. Ricky Hatton at his time. Cell phones, smartphones weren't significant. Social media wasn't significant. People's entertainment at that time that Ricky Hatton especially fought, Floyd Mayweather, Pacquiao, Castillo, Zoo, and all those guys. People's avenue of entertainment was television. So, he was able, I think, to, just like a lot of other fighters, Floyd Mayweather and those guys, they were able to penetrate that sphere of entertainment and audience a lot easier because there was limited avenues of entertainment, essentially. Whereas now it's a lot more difficult, right? To really get by. Like, you really have to not only be a great fighter, but have some type of personality, essentially. But also, like, you have to have a presence on social media, because that's where the generations are. Whether it's Instagram, X, Twitter, TikTok, especially, they have like the Gen Z and generations below. Like, that's where it's at, right? I mean, all these guys outside of boxing, all the biggest, stars right now are like streamers. Like those guys are getting all the publicity, and then they're getting all the celebrities and stars on their streaming channels, and they're just streaming. They're not even like, it's not even a show. They're just streaming. But because they get so many people tuning in, it's like, oh, there you go. Yeah, but I mean, what was his last fight? When did he retire?
So he retired and then came back for one more fight in 2012, November the 24th, against Senchenko. He retired for like 2.5 years after losing to Manny Pacquiao, and then came and fought Senchenko, and unfortunately lost by ninth round KO.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when he fought Mayweather and then he fought Pacquiao, I mean, you kind of have to look at it how, and I think Hatton's impact was just a lot greater, but fighting Floyd Mayweather and then Manny Pacquiao essentially within the span of 1 year. I mean, I'm sure he was already doing pretty well in terms of money, but fighting those two essentially back to back, life-changing, not only for him, but like the legacy of his family, right? Life-changing money.
Yeah, you would hope so.
Like Marcos Maidana.
If you look at his record, kind of taking away, his comeback fight, that was his only 2 losses. He was 45-2.
Right.
Just Floyd Mayweather and then Manny Pacquiao. If you take away
and he lost against, like you said, 2 of the generation's best fighters in the world.
In the prime.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, Ricky Hatton was like one of the best fighters in the world during his time. He was, and I mean, don't we always say that? Like, well, if you're going to lose to somebody, you might as well lose to like the best guys out there at the time. I mean, you might as well. Yeah. Rest in peace, Ricky Hatton, and it was cool to see a lot of professional sports in the UK kind of give tribute to him. So, I mean, you could tell just like, because, there's like football teams, football clubs out there and other venues that were giving Ricky Hatton like tributes. Like, that just shows you the impact that when you have another sport give you like a tribute, because I mean, you get it, right? Like, if there's like football clubs and something unfortunately happens to a player who played football over there, or they retire or something, and they're obviously famous enough and the impact they had on the sport is big enough, they're going to give that player a tribute, like, oh, okay, you played on this club for so many years. But when you have another athlete that gets a tribute in another professional sport, that shows you the impact that they had just on culture, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's very rare that you see that. So for that to happen just shows, how much they transcended outside of their sport to general life and other sports. Yeah, so just for that to happen is crazy.
Yes.
And then one thing that when I was looking back on his career that I forgot is after he lost to Floyd, he was then trained by Floyd's dad.
That's right.
Remember?
That's right. I forgot about that. Pacquiao.
2008 and 2009 for the Malignaggi fight and then the Manny Pacquiao fight.
Yes. He did go he did go train with Floyd Sr. And you know what? When that happened, I remember I was like, man, that's kind of cool. It was just a cool contrast. It's like you lose to the guy's son, and then you're like, hey, can you train me? It's like, hey, like your son beat me, but I want you to train me because you obviously trained him. Like, what a contrast that was. That's right, yeah.
I completely forgot about it until I was looking back on his career.
Yeah, that's right. He was trained by Floyd Sr. That's crazy, man. Rounding off the show, we'll hit two more topics here. There's some recent news in the sport of boxing. Moses Itauma has reportedly rejected an IBF eliminator against Frank Sanchez. What's your reaction to that news? I think he's eyeing, hopefully, to just go straight into an Usyk bout. I mean, is that realistic, or would you have advised Itauma to take an IBF eliminator against Frank Sanchez?
See, they didn't say why, so it's hard to say. I think he would beat Frank Sanchez. I think Frank Sanchez is tall, strong, a little bit methodical, which I think is all wrong for Moses Itauma. So it'd be interesting to see what route he's going to go down if he's turned that down, because I think he would beat Frank Sanchez quite easily. I think he's all wrong for him. Apart from obviously Frank Sanchez's size, I think it would be like an Usyk Fury. You know, Moses is good on his feet, fast, throws combination punches, powerful, good judgment of range, very good counter puncher, fast reflexes. So I think it's a fight that would be very winnable for him. So it'd be intriguing to see what path he has chosen to go down that, you know, when I think someone like a Frank Sanchez would be quite easy. And from what I read, Frank Sanchez is the fight's going to be offered to Richard Torres Jr.
Oh, he's still with Top Rank, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. California guy, Northern California.
Oh, that should be a fun fight. Torres against Sanchez?
Yeah, because he's similar to Moses Itauma, probably not as good, but he has come unstuck against some of the big guys. Because if you remember, when they went back to the amateur, Jalalov knocked him out badly in the Olympics, or it was an amateur fight. It might have been the Olympics or the qualifier or something.
But Itauma, I think he might have a better than average chance to get an Usyk fight. Because, I mean, you got to think about it. Usyk's kind of already been through the ringer, and he's come out on top. Fury, AJ, Daniel Dubois. Like, Usyk's literally went through the gauntlet, and he's at top with the undisputed titles. I mean, and right now, would you say Itauma is the flavor of the month in the heavyweight division right now?
Oh, especially in the UK.
Right.
Yeah. Very highly ranked.
So I think he has a really good shot to get an Usyk fight. I think it's higher than people think.
According to this article here, he is ranked number 1 by the WBA and the WBO.
Yeah, see? Those two sanctioning bodies don't even get along. WBO and WBA. And if they both have him at number 1.
So those roads would lead to an Usyk fight, or if they go down the WBO path, depending on what happens between Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley, whether that's an interim or if it's raised to the full WBO belt, he could come and pick up the WBO against the winner of Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley in the future.
Yeah.
Two smaller heavyweights, two more around. Well, to be fair, Usyk is smaller as well in terms of the Goliaths that we're used to under like AJ and Tyson Fury. So it kind of looks like the heavyweight division is getting smaller, back to your George Foreman, your
Mike
Muhammad Ali
Tyson.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. 6'3", 6'2", 6 foot. Yeah. Tyson was, I don't even think Tyson was 6 foot, was he?
I think it was a WWE style. I've met him. I don't think he was like a 5'10", 5'11" or something like that. But he had
the power of like a 6'6" guy, but
Yeah.
I think he wasn't even 6 foot. But his ego and his power were definitely way bigger than 6 foot. So he was
7 foot. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a monster. And also, remember Vito Mielnicki? He has reportedly, or Top Rank has reportedly allowed his release, and Mielnicki has reportedly signed with Zuffa Boxing, who we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, what do you think about that reported signing? I mean, he's not would you call him a prospect, or is he a little bit above that?
So he's 23 years old, 21 wins and 1 loss. His only loss was back to James Martin in 2021. I remember when he hit the scene, Top Rank did put a little bit of promotion behind him because he was from the New York area. I think they were trying to gather that kind of loyal fan base. But I think his performances just didn't really take off. You know, he didn't have like a great amount, like he's 50%, so 21 wins with only 12 KOs. So I think that was maybe why the fans didn't take to him too much. So I could kind of see why Top Rank weren't overly concerned about probably losing him and releasing him, and he's gone over to Zuffa Boxing. So just see what they can do, whether they can grab him, shine him up real nice, and stick him back out. Because if there's one thing that the UFC are good at is promotion. Getting guys good little like side reels, their embedded series and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do all of that with their boxing side.
Exactly. And have we heard anything, at least as of today, about a Top Rank television deal or broadcast deal?
No, I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen anything, right? I think your favorite of mine, Rick Glazer, I think had said a couple weeks back or within the last month or two, he had tweeted something from his Twitter account about that Top Rank had some type of upcoming deal with the Star channel, which is over here in the United States.
Okay, so I just Googled Top Rank TV deal, and what came up? Top Rank secured a broadcast deal with Stars on August the 22nd, 2025, but this hasn't been released, for an undisclosed term valued at $77 million. This deal allows for 11 boxing shows annually, with each show worth around $1 million, with Top Rank retaining the foreign rights. That if you do a quick, but that's can't be. We haven't had it.
Who is that reported by?
It says AI overview.
Oh, it's that's the artificial intelligence answer that a lot of these search engines give you. Like, what's the website? Like, who's reporting that?
At the top, it has Bad Left Hook, Sport Cal, Bad Left Hook are the two. Sportico as well.
Huh. I mean, if that was August, we're getting into October. Top Rank really hasn't said anything.
Yeah,
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, we just haven't heard anything, but that it seemed like that news hasn't really got any traction, right?
No, just Rick Glazer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as they struck a deal with something, $1 million per event.
Yeah, if that's right, it's obviously a lot less than they were getting with the ESPN deal, and
yeah, because it wasn't their deal with ESPN for like $90 to $100 million a year, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot more. And then some of the shows they were putting on, they must have been banking a lot of money, because some of the shows were like prospect shows.
Yeah,
all the home fighters were just getting knockouts.
Right.
Obviously, they did do some big shows, but I would have said more often than not, it was just like home wins, the more of a prospect show, something like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, we did two podcast shows in a row for the first time in a long time, Mike. So, hopefully we found some type of rhythm here for our listeners, because if we take another break for like another month or two, they're going to be pissed. So hopefully they're not. Hopefully some come back and get back into the rhythm. But obviously, I still try to get some guests, and I've been emailing some people. I mean, you know this. I've been emailing some people to try to secure some guests and stuff like that, and even some guests that people wouldn't even think of. But trying to coordinate some stuff, trying to get responses in general. So still working behind the scenes for you guys. So hopefully we give you guys more content to consume here on the Last Round Boxing Podcast. But as we sign off for the second week in a row, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next Monday. I should be available to do this again with Danny 3 weeks in a row.
3 weeks in a row. I think it's a new record. So don't lead people on, though, because then they're going to be pissed when we don't show up next week. They're going to be sending us messages, tweeting us, posting comments on Instagram or whatever, emailing us and all that, saying, hey, you guys lied. You guys lied about 3 weeks in a row. But as of right now, we're tentative, but we hope to come back next week with 3 weeks in a row of boxing podcast content for you. So once again, for my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.